Hi, Megan Jones here, and this is my story. It has more detail. I have a posting that I posted to you, Ali Walker, that had very little detail in it. But this has with a plethora of detail. Anyway, uh, so let me read this to you. My story consists of my dream, how it is connected to the political climate, athletes such as Christy Yamaguchi, Katarina Witt, and Vida Blue, actors and actresses such as Sandra Bullock, Ashley Judd, Deborah Messing, Gary Sinise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Anthony Clark, politics, President Harry S. Truman, and Justice J. Burke. The following signs in detail are connected to my dream of acting in movies and on television and to the past, present, and future of our country. After September 11th, the pieces started to come to light. I will do my best to explain the events that happened. My friend's cousin Heather Lee's dream was to be a pastry chef, and her first job was at the World Trade Center. A friend of mine, Amy, who I worked with at the ice rink, was 15 minutes behind the first plane that flew into Tower 1. One of the families I knew when working at the ice skating rink had just moved to Newark. Their father was on the way to the World Trade Center for his first day on the job on September 11th, 2001. Through my teens, I started seeing the connections, but it wasn't until my 20s that they became more apparent. In my journey, my aspirations began to come full circle in my life. I will start with my connections from the past. The first major event was when my father took our family to see his childhood home in New Jersey. Then, the monuments such as the cemetery in Arlington, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington. When then to the city to see the World Trade Center. I was 8 years old at that time when we were inside the top of the windows to the World Restaurant. My mom picked me up and put me on the windowsill because I wanted to see the Statue of Liberty. I put my little hands on the window, start staring out into the unknown future. This is where my story begins. Now we flash forward to 1989 to the earthquake in California. I'm at the doctor's office waiting in an exam room when something told me to put my hands on the window and look down. That's when the shaking started all around us. It was an earthquake. 20 years later, it seemed my future had taken me back to when I was 8 years old. It was brought to my attention that my cousin from New Jersey had a girlfriend that was working at the World Trade Center that day. Not only did she not survive on September 11th, 2001, but her sister had worked in the same building as well. She too did not survive. And a little side bit here, my cousin, Roger, he was going to marry the girlfriend in the future. She would have been the future Mrs. Jones. So then, when I was settling into my apartment here in North Carolina, I found a box my mother had brought over. It contained a picture of Harry S. Truman, and standing behind him is my grandfather George R. Riley. He had attained his being reelected. The president invited him to the White House, where the commander-in-chief offered him a job in Washington, D.C. as Postmaster General. But my grandfather declined. When Truman came out of his office to greet my grandfather and his entourage, the president said to General George Marshall, who served in World War II, "Sorry, General, this is my very good friend George R. Riley, who helped me in my re-election. He's next to come in and visit me in my office." The field trip that resonated with me while attending Brush Ranch in New Mexico was the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Think for one moment, the great-granddaughter, whose grandfather of Irish descent, is at the place where the nuclear bomb was built and tested. She sees her grandfather in a picture with Harry S. Truman on the video for guests, and Harry S. Truman on the video for guests to watch. There are several reasons why we left California. First, we felt our votes and voices were never counted. Second, the financial burden of living for 3 people was too steep. Of these 3 people, 2 are on Social Security and the other on disability pension, living in a home that required so much maintaining that it drained our finances. Third, the freedom and liberties we had were rapidly disappearing. Every time we woke up, there was a great divide around the neighborhood, separating what people stood for and believed in. We were the minority. We never voted for Barack Obama. We voted against gay marriage. Fourth, the number of home robberies and muggings were climbing in that neighborhood and around the city of Oakland. I was a victim of one of these muggings 3 weeks before I was let go, and I lost my job in 2004. It started when I was working at the ice rink. The rink wanted to make some more money, so they did. And they did it by renting out the space by hosting rave parties with drugs and alcohol. After the first one was a success, they had another. That's when troubles began. Attendees were let in from all walks of life. The youth had attended would start hanging around the ice rink, the ice center, and act as if they were entitled to do whatever they wanted and go wherever they pleased. One day I had been working at the front desk, and I tried to stop 2 of these guys, and they became arrogant and enraged that a white woman would stop them. After my shift, I was heading out to go to Gold's Gym, and 2 of the guys were following me. I heard one threaten me by saying, "I'm so sick and tired of her shit, I'm going to kill her." There are plenty of other examples like this that I could provide you if you need more. Fifth, we lost 2 of our close neighbors. One had a mental illness and fell victim to HHS. She was found floating out in the ocean of Mendocino County. Our other neighbor lost her father, who lived a full life and fought under General Douglas MacArthur. She did fundraising for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Meg Whitman, Carla Fiorina, Mitt Romney when he ran for president in 2012. 2 years prior to losing my cousin Ryan, we lost his uncle Kevin, who was a fireboat pilot. There's much more I could tell you about his uncle, but I would love to have the privilege to do so in person. Here are my celebrity connections, and there are a plethora of them. Sandra Bullock, my cousin Ryan, he died of hypothermia in 2010. He was walking home alone after a night out with his boss following a late shift. Instead of making a left to go home, he made a right towards the boat launch. He was found holding onto a pier, screaming. When someone finally heard him at 6 a.m., then the Coast Guard got him out of the water and rushed him to the hospital. Where it was too late for his parents and his 2 brothers to say goodbye, he passed away by the time they had got to the hospital. The bridge where he walked over that night is the same one that Sandra Bullock ran over while making her getaway from the bad guy in the movie The Net. I recently met a gentleman, Steve Stadler, who helped my mother set up the apartment for me here in Asheville, North Carolina. Steve was in 28 Days with Sandra. My senior year at Curry College, Anthony Clark performed for us at Comedy Night Spring Fling. He was also in The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. He also was in The Thing Called Love with Sandra Bullock. And Allie, you're also connected. We are also connected by Sandra because you were in the movie with her while you were sleeping. So, and then that's the connection with us. So, and Sandra. Okay, so, and here's a connection to Deborah Messing. My cousin's friend is the actor Beverly Johnson, who played Beverly Leslie on Will and Grace. One of the students I went to boarding school with was Eileen Brennan's son, who she was also on Will and Grace. Here's my connection to Ashley Judd. She lived in Marin County, California, and I was born and raised in California. Her godmother, Jacqueline Bissett, is my neighbor Kristen's best friend from back home. There's one more. Um, there's one more, but I'll leave it in person when and if I see her. So here are my connections with athletes. Vida Blue. Attended a Golden State Warrior game. I was an usher at that time. My shift was not going well. I had been assigned to the club level. What makes it club level? Well, there are better seats and there's a bar behind the restaurant. Behind the seats, a ticket holder was lost before the game, and I stopped him and checked his ticket. It was not for the club level seating, so I informed him and escorted him to his seat. Before the game was over, he returned intoxicated and told me the person who ran the bar said it was okay because the guy had been buying so many drinks. I broke down crying after it happened. He put myself and the people I was responsible for in danger. Part of the job of an usher after the game is over is to make sure the fans have left and none of them try to sneak into the club or the locker rooms. I remember that there were two guys who did try to sit in the club level seats because I witnessed them walk over to the better seats. Above them was Vida Blue. He played for the Oakland A's, San Francisco Giants, and Kansas City Royals. I go over to the two guys who are now in the club level seats and say, "Excuse me, gentlemen, the game is over and you have to leave the building." They give me a smirk and a chuckle. I had a bad night, and I had to tell them repeatedly to get up and leave. Finally, they do. Then Vida Blue says to me, "You're doing a good job." He had seen the fans were not cooperating with me that night. Then 10 years later, get this. My father tells me the story of the day the day he and my mother had gone golfing. He had just hit his ball off the tee. There was a man still putting and waved for the person to go ahead and hit the ball. So my dad walks down to hit his ball again from the fairway to the green. He walks over and my mother just hit her ball and landed. Hang on a second. This is great. Let you hear this. Okay. On the green. Oh, wow. The man walks up to my dad and asks, "Excuse me, sir, who was it that drove the ball on the green?" My father said, "My wife." The man said, "Whoa, she's good." The man was Vida Blue. The next two athletes' connections are Chrissy Yamaguchi and Katarina Bent. I had worked for an ice skating rink. When pro skaters like Chrissy Yamaguchi, Chrissy and Brian Boitano, they would come in and practice when they were in town doing a show at our local arena. I recall one of these times. Both Katarina and Christy were there rehearsing before they left. Christy says to Katarina, "Oh, Katarina, I want to introduce to you to Megan Jones. She works here at the rink and takes care of the figure skaters, rings the customers up, and is an asset to us and the establishment." Katarina comes up to me and we shake hands and she says, "It's nice to meet you, Megan. It was a dream come true." I watched her win the gold medal. There are so many more connections from my aunt and uncle on my father's side. My uncle served in the Marine Corps and was stationed in Hawaii 20 years after World War II. He attended Yale. His classmates that were there with him had important historic marks in shaping our country. For example, he went to school with Samuel Baugh. I think is actually one of his relatives. So, yeah. And so my brother went to Yale as well. One bowl game versus Harvard I attended, Supreme Court Justice Robert Bork who also attended, walked by me. One of his classmates, my brother's classmates, is Thomas L. Moran, a TV writer for House, NCIS, Battle Creek, and another classmate is related to the Macy's family. The two most present are George Will, who was a friend of my uncle's, Coach Bill Parcells. Not only did my uncle, Richard Jones, and the coach grow up together in New Jersey, but he put him in his book that just came out, Parcells, A Football Life. So that's my story. And Allie Walker, I know you can't help me, But I've also looking into trying to be an extra here in Asheville, but there's really nothing to I don't want to say go for, but there's really no projects. And I think it's partly because of the weather, and also I think it's partly because of the HB2 bill. So if there is something you can advise or you can help me, that would be great. But I understand that, because I think first fans get the like me. Sometimes we don't. We have to remember that actors are not like what their characters are. Actors are real. They're real human beings. They have different opinions than what is scripted for them. So, and but I mean, if you can help me, that's great. But if you can't, I understand, because I know that Hollywood is pretty tight in a circle of friends. So, but anyway, and I have also I had a hard time in school, and when I was little, the teachers thought I was like unteachable, but it wasn't true. My mom kept trying to tell them, and she did some work investigating, and finally I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And in college was pretty hard for me. Even boarding school was pretty hard, but I have to admit, I loved boarding school more than I loved college. So, well, I hope that I'll hear from you, Allie. So take care, and take care of Olive. She's really cute. Okay,